This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, right up front, I'm going to say if you can hear that jackhammering sound in the background, we've got some construction work going on here in the PR garage, and they're specifically jackhammering away at some concrete that was my old front steps at my house. So if you hear that sound in the background, that's what sound that is. No worries, though. We go on with the show as we always do. Hope your week has gone well. Hope your new week is off to a good start. You know, I had an event that I did last week with a client, a higher education client, and get into the PR person bringing in resources of our own, right? And we hired the Associated Press. You know, those of you who know, and maybe those of you who don't now know, that the Associated Press hires out their photographers and allows you to bring them in as your own hired photographer, shoot an event like they would any other event, and then push photos out on the Associated Press wire. It's a separate service that they run. They make a little money. We all want to see the Associated Press stay in business. But you end up getting A, these fantabulous photos, and B, you get 6 photos that go on the AP wire that you can then also send out to your media contact lists, et cetera, et cetera. We had terrific success with this. As we're taping this, the event just happened last night, and we've already had a bunch of people pick up these photos. And these photos live on the AP, in the AP library in perpetuity. So wanted to bring that up for those of you who don't know. Reach out to your local Associated Press office next time you have a significant event. You know, these are not cheap, and these are some of the best photographers in the world. So you got to take your hat off to them as well and respect their price point. But if you have a big event coming up and you need terrific photos and you want great distribution on those photos, you should absolutely look into this resource because it is fantastic. AP, I will send you my invoice very, very soon. Now on to the business at hand. We have a terrific guest this week, so let's get right to it. Natalie Martin is co-founder of Heed PR, a Chattanooga-based agency representing clients across healthcare, nonprofit, banking, venture capital, technology, and cannabis. Prior to launching Heed PR with her husband, David Martin, Natalie was a project manager in the digital marketing space, and her know-how has helped Heed to seamlessly manage a consistent book of business along with a dedicated roster of contractors. Natalie, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your background and Heed PR. You and your husband started this agency. You're based in Chattanooga. How did you come to start it, and what skills? He told me a little story offline, but maybe you can tell me a little bit about how you and he collaborated this agency.
Yeah. So, before starting our business, David and I, my husband / business partner, we had kind of similar roles. We've both done in-house PR. I worked at a small business here in town, did PR and communications for them. He did traditional PR more recently than me. And when prior to launching our business, my most recent roles were in project management. I worked in the digital space doing website project management, essentially, for new website builds. And we just kind of would always say, one day, one day we'll do this ourselves. One day we'll run a business. And as it turned out, the job that he had was moving to Denver. We kind of looked at each other and said, this seems like the sign to try the thing that we've been talking about doing one day. And the goal was to have enough business in the first year so that I could leave my job, or that we could start talking about that. So obviously David's job moving to Denver, we didn't go with them. We said, let's try it. And it actually turned out that in about 3 months of our official launch, he was looking at me with crazy eyes saying, you got to quit. You've got to come on. Because I was coming home and doing things on nights and weekends. So full-time job and et cetera, coming in and helping with the things that weren't his strong suit that needed to get done. So that's kind of how we brought it to life. And it's been fast and furious ever since I, pulled the plug on the last job and kind of dove in head first. But it's been really fun.
So your husband was telling me that you brought some specific skills, and you were getting into the skills that you brought over from your prior career in web development and project management. Tell me how you applied those to PR, because I love a good plan.
Yeah. So he likes to say that I'm a project manager by birth, but I say that I'm a project manager by necessity, because if I wasn't managing projects, everything would feel like chaos to me. So, like I mentioned, we had similar roles. We'd both done, I was a writer, editor, marketing agency stuff, did PR for small business, and then found myself in digital marketing, which was kind of a new field when I entered it, somewhat new anyway, with SEO and all that good stuff that you need to do. And I liked that and I liked learning it, but then I transitioned into the project management portion of those businesses. I love the collaboration element where you're kind of helping the client, the designer, the developer kind of build a vision and bring it to life. I love collaborating with each different personality, because those are such different personalities. You have a client who has this big vision of what something can do. And then you have the developer that says, okay, this is how that can actually happen. And you've got the designer who makes it look nice. So I thrived in that environment. I accidentally figured out that I love project management. So the things that I do for our business aren't really unique to PR, but they're super, super helpful. And when I always tell this story of my first week working with David full time. I watched him in that state of chaos. So, I'm so busy. He had been managing a lot. And so I was just kind of trying to dig in and find out, what's here, what are we doing, looking at accounting, looking at all the parts of the work that he was doing that I hadn't helped with yet. And the thing that stood out to me, I was like, you don't plan your schedule, you don't time block. And he said, I don't have time to do that. And I was like, you're never going to have time to do anything if we don't do it. And so I think it was the second week that I'd been working with him full time after I'd left my last job. And it was a Wednesday afternoon. I sat down next to him with my computer and I said, we're going to time block the rest of your week. And he was not happy about it. He didn't have time to do it. I was distracting him from his important work. And, but he said, okay, he agreed. And I think it was maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock on Friday that week that he looked at me and said, I finished everything that I had planned to do this week. And I was like, yes. So now he is an adamant time blocking aficionado. We do it every week together. We sit down. That's kind of how we map out our deliverables. It's how we give work to contractors, which I can talk about more too. But it's how we make sure that everything's getting done, that progress and momentum keep happening week after week, and how we make sure that everybody stays happy.
That is such a great story, and really kudos to you for not just telling him what to do, but demonstrating.
Yeah.
Because that's really the convincer with all of us, I think.
Yeah. And if it's not your, like I said, it's not really my natural operational, just it's not really how my brain works, but I've seen the value of it when I've done it, and now I couldn't not do it. And like I said, it's kind of the foundation of how we structure getting things done every week. And it helps. We sit down and time block together. We talk through every client, what needs to happen, who's doing it, whose calendar is it going on, are we assigning it to someone? And that way we make sure the ball never gets dropped, which is fantastic.
Do you use, I hesitate to bring this up, do you use any particular software that goes along with that? Do you have a favorite that you use, or is it really just like the pen and paper calendar?
That's a great question. We use Google Calendar, and I've seen people do it. I think it works best in a software platform, whether that's Google Calendar. Like, it doesn't have to be fancy. Google Calendar, your iCal, whatever it happens to be, because then you can drag things around or change the duration of a project if you need to. Whereas if you were doing pen and paper, it would be a lot more difficult to make edits, which you need to have that fluidity. It's like, yes, plan, but leave yourself some wiggle room, because things do change throughout the week.
Yeah, it's great to hear you describe that. I mean, I think that some people can probably get so caught up in the how they do what you're talking about, or the what they use to do what you're talking about, that they miss the whole point of doing it, which is just getting it in the calendar and committing to doing it at that time.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's one of the simplest things, honestly, that we do, but it makes such a huge impact on our ability to actually complete our jobs.
That's great. And your clients have also gravitated to that as well?
I think some of our clients do it. Honestly, I'm not sure. We just kind of keep progress going on our end and keep them updated, and they're happy with that.
That's funny, because I sometimes describe what I do for a living as juggling flaming chainsaws. And sometimes we do, it's like keeping everything in the air and keeping it moving. But to your point, it doesn't have to be that way. There are some things that are they're out of your control, right? And you've just got to run to keep up. There are other things, the proactive things and the strategic things, where you should be planning in that way.
Yeah, definitely. And that was some of David's initial pushback. In PR, you are dealing with reporters calling you and saying, I would love to talk to your client. My deadline is 3 p.m. today. I need to talk to them within the next hour. And sure, that throws off your schedule a little bit. And they have different types of schedules than we do. But that's why it's so great to have your schedule kind of mapped out and in a way that you can see it and even tangibly move things around. And I always say leave some wiggle room in between your time blocks, even if you may have a few things in the morning and then you have a little gap, and just leave that so that you can move things around a little bit, because there will be those things that come up that, sure, they are urgent, or if a crisis happens, you've got to jump on that. But for the most part, if you have everything there, it helps you keep a little bit of calm as you're dealing with those urgent things. You don't feel quite as overwhelmed when you can look at your schedule and say, like, oh, I have some open time on Thursday afternoon. I can move some of these things over that aren't so urgent and actually address this big need that just popped up.
Do you also have a hard and fast quitting time every day? I mean, do you identify a time where you say, okay, I'm going to stop working at this time?
I don't. We generally plan our days in the kind of 9 to 5 time frame, but there have been plenty of days where I get to 3:30 and I'm like, there's no way that I can do anything productive after all. This day has just been, one of those where you're just thinking all day long or doing something really tedious. And you do reach a point of diminishing returns. And I think that's something that's really important to identify and honor and allow to happen. Because if you're not your best, you're not doing your best work, you're not delivering the best wins for your clients. There are other days when I'm super energized and I'm just knocking things out, and we have win after win after win, and I can just keep going. And I that's another reason why it's great to have your schedule mapped out. You can look at your day and say, man, if I do, I'm in a great mood, things are just, it's all flowing, my day is going great, move some stuff over and kind of seize that mojo. And then you have a little more free time later on. So I just keep talking about time blocking, but that's my favorite thing. And it helps you kind of make the best of all of those situations.
That's fantastic. Another phrase that you mentioned to me before the podcast that you like to talk about is resisting the tyranny of the urgent. And I love that phrase.
Yes.
Describe that for me.
Yeah. So, someone else's emergency isn't always an emergency. And not to say if a client comes to us and is really stressed about something that we're just going to blow them off. But it's important to remember that every little thing that pops up isn't the thing that you need to focus your time and energy on. And the way that you can allow yourself to kind of do this is this schedule planning, this time blocking, making sure you know what are the things that actually need to get done, so that when things pop up, or you know, you have things that are coming your way, you can say, it helps you prioritize, you know, you can fit it in a different area, or you can say, actually, this is something that I really need to focus on. But you know, if you're and this was kind of David, you know, before we started time blocking, I would see him, every little thing that popped up, every email that came through, feeling like he needed to address it right when it happened. And it came from a great place of, you know, wanting to deliver excellent customer service and wanting to make sure everybody had everything they need. But you don't have to respond immediately all the time. And having your schedule nailed down and your priorities identified can really help you fit things in where they need to go.
That is one of the things that I've always found challenging in our business, is turning off my email in order to focus on a project. Because as PR people, part of what we do is respond to those unsolicited and unplanned incoming PR reporter inquiries.
Yes.
And if you turn off your email for an hour, you risk missing that and, you know, potentially something going bad. How do you manage that specific concern about, you know, turning off your email in order to focus, but you might miss something?
Yeah, for the most part, we, you know, if our cell phone rings with a client, we know that that's something that's important that we need to check out. But for the most part, no one's going to email us something that's that urgent. You know, if they need something that quickly, they're calling our cell phones. So that's one way we kind of enable ourselves to check out just a little bit. We also have a phone system that rings to both of our phones, which is nice. So we can kind of share that responsibility for just keeping tabs on what's going on the phone, and just communicating with our clients. You know, they know if something big is happening, give us a call. We have great relationships with media members here that they know how to get in touch with us, and they know if something's really urgent, they're going to shoot us a text or send us an email. Also, we just kind of sometimes kind of do focus time oppositely, I guess is a way to say it. So if one of us needs to be super dialed in on something, super head down, kind of ignoring outside noise, we don't do that at the same time, so that if something pops up, one or the other of us can hop on it. And again, that's making sure people know to CC both of us on emails. Like almost all of our clients email both of us everything. And like I said, they'll call us if something big comes up, but they know that one or the other of us is going to hop on something really quickly, and that enables us to kind of like share the load there a little bit.
That's great. That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. I think I could talk all day long about this, because I joke that I'm a little OCD, even though I'm not OCD, and there are people who actually are OCD. You know, I make jokes that I can't sit down. When I sit down, even at the dinner table, like I have to arrange the fork and the knife, and I have to make sure everything's in its right place. Yeah. I can't work at a messy desk. You know, I've got to make sure that everything is constantly in the place that I expect it to be before I can even get to being productive. And I know lots of people who are a similar way. And it's great to hear you share these ideas about sort of how you can create an environment where you can be productive and you can actually get more done in a day than you might even expect.
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like as much as it sounds like these things are, you know, nitpicky and so specific and kind of maybe frustrating for creatives, you know, it's not really a creative environment. For me, it's a freeing situation, because I know that when I am, you know, if I have a project I really want to focus on, put 3 full hours on my day to where I can just sit down and focus on that thing and not worry that I'm missing something else while doing that. So that's the project manager by birth versus project manager by necessity kind of theme coming back there, I guess.
It sounds like it's all working. If you had to give a tip or a piece of advice to someone who maybe wants to get started with this?
Yeah.
How do people get started with this if maybe they've never done it before, they're not familiar with it, they don't know where to go?
Yeah. So obviously Gmail is free. If you use Google Apps for Business, that's also great. I know Outlook has a calendar. It, again, doesn't have to be fancy, just whatever calendar system you use. You plan it, the chunks of time, just like you would a meeting or an appointment. And also make sure those things are represented in your calendar as well, even things like travel to and from meetings. Reactive time, you may want to put a chunk of time on your day every day, of actual time to be reactive to the things that pop up that you're not expecting. And just, I would always say, I already mentioned giving yourself wiggle room, but also budget more time than less. There's kind of a psychological reaction, I feel like, when you, let's say a project takes you an hour and a half when you're only planning an hour for it. You look at your next chunk of time and you're like, I'm already behind. Whereas if you left yourself some room or over budgeted on time, you may have already budgeted that hour and a half. Or if you left a little gap, you may look and say, whew, I didn't have another thing scheduled until 15 minutes from now. So those are, I think, the biggest things. And just like allow yourself room for trial and error too. You may not get it right the first time, but don't think that means it's not a good system. Just kind of learn as you go. And if you're on your own, that's a little bit harder. But with our, if it was more than me and David, I would do it with our whole team, just kind of sitting down and making sure everybody has everything that needs to happen on their calendar. It's a great way to kind of knock out a really productive planning meeting each week.
That is fantastic. Well, this has been a great conversation, Natalie. Thank you so much. And it's something we've never talked about here on the PR podcast. So
Great.
I'm really
so glad.
happy that you brought it up as a topic and that we're able to get into it a little bit. And there's a little bit more construction noise going on in the background. I don't know if anybody can hear it.
I didn't even notice it.
It's pretty loud from where I'm standing. That's okay. We are going to pivot now into the rapid fire question section of our podcast. This is where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio and ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions. These, Natalie, meant to elicit a simple answer, maybe a laugh or two. So with your indulgence, here we go. Rapid fire question number 1. What is your favorite news source?
David, my husband.
He gives you the download every day. Is that it?
Yeah. He consumes a lot more news than I do. And I also enjoy that I can discuss things with him. So if I'm learning it from him and then able to ask questions, it's a nice conversation versus just the one-sided consuming of news.
That's very good. Very smart of the two of you. All right. Rapid fire question number 2. What is your favorite social media platform?
Instagram.
I love the pictures.
Yeah, I love pictures.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, seeing people's lives, it's just fun to see what's going on every day, and usually makes me laugh. Instagram has great memes too.
They definitely do. I have a habit of liking everybody who posts a picture of them, a selfie. I like to see my friends, right? I don't care. I know there's this whole selfies, but I love seeing my friends. Show me a picture of you. Absolutely. I want to see you. I want to see how you're doing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Instagram's great.
100%. All right. Rapid fire question number 3. Coffee or alcohol?
Both. I would hope to not have to choose.
All right. Rapid fire question number 4. What is your favorite on the run food?
I love Chick-fil-A. Where are you located? Do you guys have Chick-fil-A's there?
We do have Chick-fil-A in our neighborhood. Yes, we do.
Great.
All right. And rapid fire question number 5. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
I would like to be retired.
I heard one person tell me one time they wanted to be alive.
Yeah, that's also
Which
great.
I thought was a little dramatic, but also not untrue.
Yeah. I'm watching my mom be retired, and I just look forward to that being the thing that I get to do. I love to cook. I could say that I would be a personal chef, but I'd rather just cook for myself while I'm retired.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. Personal chef is a lot of pressure. Yeah. Cook for yourself. I agree.
Yeah.
So question number 6 then. What's your favorite thing to cook?
Oh my goodness. I don't even know. I like cooking Asian food and Mexican food. I feel like oddly they're the easiest to recreate somehow, even though they're not what I grew up eating necessarily.
That's okay. So expanding your horizons.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds good. Sounds good. Well, Natalie, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Please let people know how they can find you and Heed PR online.
Yeah. Our website is just heedpr.com, HEED as a dog, PR.com. Email Natalie at heedpr.com. And then you can find us. Our social handle should be at heedpr on most everything. We shouldn't be difficult to locate.
Fantastic. And it's a great name for an agency too. I'll say that.
Thank you.
Really great
we loved it. Yeah. We sat down and did a whole naming exercise, and we want people to take heed, to notice our clients. It's short. There were no other ones, and the domain was available and cheap. So we said, it's great. We kept coming back to it, and it just checked all the boxes. So thank you very much.
Doesn't get better than that. That's awesome. Well, thanks again, Natalie, and thank your husband for reaching out as well. And thank you everyone for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Appold. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials, and online at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.